Sometimes you just want to take the money out early from your qualified plan or IRA. Well, unfortunately, you're going to have to pay a penalty for that unless you meet one of these exceptions. Death, disability, and medical expenses are some of the most common ones that you're going to see with early withdrawal penalty exceptions. So they're not going to penalize you for dying. If you're disabled, they're going to allow you to get your money. And medical expenses, if they're in excess of 7.5% of AGI, then you're going to be able to avoid that early withdrawal penalty. Now, the penalty is 10%, and a qualified domestic relations order will allow you to escape that. That's going to be something you would see in divorce proceedings. That means that the person who receives that amount isn't penalized for the early withdrawal. They're going their separate ways. They're taking that money. They're going to start their own account somewhere else. Corrections, basically, if there was excess that was put in, you can take that out and fix it. So that's just correcting a mistake. Not seen as often, but it is something that is done. Now, the SEPP right there is substantially equal periodic payments. These can come in three flavors. There are three ways to structure them. Basically, you can use the RMD method, required minimum distribution method, which follows that same mathematical formula that you use for RMDs, but you would be at a younger age, obviously, because you're not required to take it out. You're taking it out early here. So this 72T exception gives you a withdrawal that changes. The other two options for this substantially equal periodic payment is a fixed amortization method, which is going to be less than or equal to 120% of the federal midterm rate, or the fixed annuitization method. Here, you would divide by an annuity factor, that is the present value of the annuity based on an IRS life table. So three ways that you can use that SEPP, or as you might also hear, 72T, substantially equal periodic payments. With the two fixed methods, you've got one time that you can switch to the RMD, which will fluctuate depending on the account balance and your age each year. The fixed amortization method, once it's calculated, you're getting that same dollar amount every single year until maybe the final year there's not quite enough to get you there. Same thing with the fixed annuitization method. You're calculating one amount now, and that's the amount that you'll have for the rest of that 72T payout. Another option to avoid that penalty would be separation from service after age 55. Now, this does not apply to IRAs because the IRA is not tied to your employment. They don't care if you quit your job. They're still going to make you wait until 59 and a half. Now, if we're talking about a 401k, then you've separated from service after age 55. After age 55 there is a little bit tricky in the way that it's defined. So you could separate from service in this year, in January, and 3 months later turn 55. That's still okay. It's just in the same year. First-time home purchase is a little misleading in the title. It's the first home that you purchased in the last 2 years. And that only applies to IRAs. So for a qualified plan, you wouldn't be able to do so. Health insurance premiums while unemployed and higher education expenses are both also early withdrawal penalty exceptions for IRAs only. And note when I'm saying IRA here, I'm talking about the traditional IRA, not the Roth IRA. One of the more common questions you'll typically see is the higher education expenses. Somebody will try to take some money out of a 401k and say, oh, I don't owe the penalty because it's from a qualified retirement plan. Well, that doesn't work. It's only for the IRA. See, so with those education expenses, you can have tuition, fees, books, supplies, and equipment. And the first-time home buyer, while we do have that liberal definition, we're looking at only up to $10,000. The health insurance premiums after 12 consecutive weeks of unemployment compensation. So there's still little things that go with these penalty exceptions, but this is the big picture. And The most common ones that you're going to see are death, disability, and medical expenses. Substantially equal periodic payments is probably the trickiest because it requires calculations to look at the different methods, but you can go into those more deeply later on your